my lovelies, and welcome to Tangerine Jukebox. Today we are scrapbusting. I have been working on loads of projects with acrylic and with wood, and the pile of materials that are almost used up but have just a little bit left has been growing, so we need to do something about that. So I have 5 projects to suggest of ways you can use up these little in-between bits or the offcuts that you otherwise have no further use for. I'll be using my trusted Trotec Speedy 300 called Dorothy to do these jobs, but of course any laser cutter will do just fine. So let's get started. For the first project, I decided to make some thread bobbins with a little bit of a fun look. I've been doing various crafts, whether it's knitting, embroidery, and finding that I accumulate a lot of loose little threads that just need to have a place and a purpose. So making these was quite a good way to just organize them and give them somewhere to go. I can wind the leftover thread, whether it's one colour or a bunch of little scraps, around my little character and use the 2 little nooks by the shoulders to keep the ends of the thread in place so that they don't get loose and they don't get tangled with other pieces. I've also found later some ribbons that needed organising, so there we go, I made him a friend. The second project is more pretty than it is necessarily useful, but it's a nice way to remember the knitting projects that I've worked on by using the scraps of thread as a kind of, not quite cross stitch in this case, but just a nice little panel that reminds me of the colours that I've used in the past. This was made using 3mm plywood that was left over from another project. For the third project, I made some earrings. It's likely the most common suggestion for using up scraps of wood or acrylic, but to be fair, it is a good one. You can use truly any scrap because it can be as small as 15mm really. Here I had a little bit of fun pre-engraving some pieces so that I could then paint them. I used 3mm plywood for this. And it looks like it was probably the bottom of a box I was making, which turned out to be the wrong size. So that's useful as well. You can mask the wood or you can leave it as is. In this case, I didn't mask the wood because I knew I'd be painting on top of it. But if you're using a material that you don't plan on fully painting, then it's probably worth putting a little bit of masking paper over it so that you can avoid the little bits of char that you can see on top. I then painted a few of the pieces. I just used straight up acrylic paint. For these, a couple of layers of acrylic will give you really good coverage, and they just look fun and they're easy. They're so lightweight to wear and they're easy to make as a big batch and then paint at your leisure when you've got a little bit more time. As well as cutting earrings out of wood, I've also cut some out of little scraps of acrylic. So here I just made some little hexagons and some little stars and some little hearts, which I can then just put a stud on the back. And they're great for gifts, they're great for little bonus items to add in your customers' orders. And everyone enjoys a little freebie, of course. I've kept a few of my favourite pairs and they are safely guarded until I can wear them. My next project, here I'm using up some of the tiny awkward spaces in between other pieces to make stitch markers. I am a knitter and I quite like to use funky little stitch markers when I'm knitting. These are used either to keep track of where you are in the project or to remind you where you need to do something particular, like knit 2 stitches together or add a new stitch. And they make fabulous little gifts. They are just so cute. In this case, I've put them on bulb pins, which means that they can be used for crochet as well and easily removed. For our final suggestion, it's almost a don't make rather than a make. Keep some material back to do some tests. So when you're doing a new project, you can use some offcuts to just do some power tests to make sure that everything is coming out as nice as it can. And you can make some sample tiles. So mark the name of the product that you're using and a little engraving. It'll give you a feel for what it looks like. You can share that with customers who want to ensure that the colors they're using are exactly the ones they have in mind. So always keep a little bit back, just not a giant pile. As you can see, these are just some of the ways you can use your scraps, and there are many more projects that I plan to do using some of these and of course all sorts of new materials. So be sure to subscribe and to stick around for some more fun projects with Tangerine Jukebox. See you later.